Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our October Policy Committee meeting. We're going to start out with the agenda items. Agenda item 1.01, number 5100, comprehensive student attendance, and I'm going to turn the floor over to our Deputy Superintendent, Mr. Ed Forger.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. This item is on the agenda for the purpose of discussing the excuse code family emergency. We would like to entertain a conversation around how to clearly and more specifically define that. Margot has done some work on trying to find how other school districts approach this. So for today's purpose, this item is on here for a collaborative discussion on how should we define family emergency. In the research that I did, it basically defines family emergency as some of the other excuse codes that we already have existing, such as death in the family and some other things. So I'd like to turn this over to Margot to guide us through a conversation of considerations.
Also, this is just a small number of things. I looked through many attendance policies, and most of them didn't even have a classification of family emergency. And I think that's because you would use what the other, basically most of them are illness in the family, death in the family. So this is just these are just the ones that I found that had some reference or some meaningful reason to be reviewed.
Okay. Board members, any questions or responses to?
First question is, do we want to keep family emergency as a category?
That's the first question we'll deal with. Okay, Mr. Forger.
I'd like to entertain the possibility of not using that any longer. I believe we're into post-pandemic. I believe that the excuse codes that we had were very direct and understandable. I think they were appropriately aligned with the regulations, and I think that they were they were consistent with the other school districts' excuse codes. Family emergency being such a broad term doesn't allow us the integrity that we need in attendance taking and attendance record keeping. So it's my recommendation that we review the other codes to make sure that they're appropriate, but I think we need to eliminate family emergency at this point.
Board members, questions, Mr. Mineo?
Well, in reading through, everything was very redundant. Everybody basically has the same thing. So what I did was I read through all the others, and then I went back and I read ours, and I felt like ours was basically what everybody else was saying. So my feeling is leave what we have, but do what Mr. Forget is suggesting to help contain some of those nebulous family emergency things that we might get into.
Okay.
Right, and if you were going to keep it, you would want to have it more specific, like one of the ones in there that indicates that where you have to prove that there is truly a family emergency.
Okay, Mr. Lamar?
Any concerns I would have, I think, are covered by the illness or death in the family. I think that it covers a pretty broad thing, whether it be someone's in the hospital from an injury or what you name it. I think that kind of is the catch-all, and I think with that in there, I don't think we really need the emergency.
Okay, and I will just say, so what the recommendation coming from Mr. Forger would be to remove family emergency as a standalone, because it is encompassed in all the other excuses that we already have. Is that correct, Mr. Forger?
That is correct. The only thing that I saw that was different, and correct me if I'm wrong, Margot, was car accident in some of the others as an emergency, but I think that could be addressed through an appeal.
Right, or a conversation.
Right.
With
Okay.
proof.
Dr. Campbell, would you like to feed in on this, or?
I think I agree with what it says up there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Forger. So this recommendation will be brought to the board at the next meeting to remove family emergency, correct?
Do you want to do first read and adopt?
First read and adopt, yes.
Thank you.
With that change.
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. All right, next item, Mr. Forser.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. The next item is, I believe, non-represented employees, but I can't see the
No,
screen.
no, 1.02, video conferencing of board meetings.
Yes, okay, another conversation. So can we open that policy? Not that one. This is one of the new New York State School Board Association policies for consideration. We do have some of this information already, but I think we need to have a conversation around the components of this. So if you take a few minutes just to review this, if you haven't had a chance.
Can I just say before you review it, there is video conferencing at board meetings, the way it has traditionally been for the last decade, where you have your address in the notice and the public is invited to attend. This is video conferencing in extraordinary circumstances. It is not required to be approved by the board. It's optional, and you would have to develop procedures for implementing it as well as have a public hearing prior to adoption.
So when you say it's not required for approval of the board, then
It's-
how is that implemented?
You wouldn't implement it unless the board approved a resolution after a public hearing on your procedures for video conferencing in extraordinary circumstances. One of the big issues is if you don't have the address in the notice and you don't allow the public to attend, then that person cannot make part of the quorum. So if there's an issue of not having a quorum, that person cannot make part of the quorum.
Understood.
If you are video conferencing with the address and the ability for the public to attend, that person is part of the quorum.
Okay, Ms. Maneo.
This was outlined in the on-board. I just read it this morning. And I think the question that I have for Margot is, when you're voting, the person can be in the discussion,
Yes.
and their vote, as long as they're part of as long as we have a quorum.
As long as you
they're-
have a quorum in in one physical location.
And then the public is in that physical location.
Correct. But if you allow video conferencing, you also have to give the public the ability to be part of the, of video conferencing, to be able to see and hear and comment.
That's my next question.
Yeah.
So commenting, we can, even if we're not doing video conferencing for, let's say, a board member, let's say a person from the public would like to make a comment in video, we could allow that.
Yes, you have to allow
If we
that.
have this
Yes.
policy.
Yes.
This is what the state is recommending everyone go to? No? We'll just-
They're not recommending it. They developed this in response to some, I guess, concerns about during COVID having the address and inviting the public to attend. So they developed this in the most complicated and ridiculous manner possible to enable this. And it's only good through 2024 because they want to see how it's going to work. That's why it's optional, and you would have to opt into it by a resolution, procedures, and a public hearing.
Mr. Lamar, maybe this will be helpful. In the past, let's say you went to a conference in LA and you wanted to participate in the meeting. You had to tell us where you were, you had to put down the address, and then it had to be open for the public to come and sit with you in an open place before. Then there was COVID, and then during COVID, they closed that down, saying that you could be in your own home and not put your address down, and the public would not have to be in your house, okay? So Now, this is a little bit different. It's kind of changing the whole view of what it is, I guess, because they wanted to strengthen it and put some parameters on what was happening.
Right. They wanted to answer the question of why can't we have video conferencing without notifying of the address and giving the public an opportunity to be there.
So Margot, if this is implemented, would this allow for individuals who wanted to participate in the public participation to sign on and be able to do it through video?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Madam President.
Margot, what happens if we don't adopt this policy? Because we don't, that's a discussion we need to have. Can we still have video participation by
Yes.
people? Okay, thank you.
But with the address and the public being able to participate.
No, I mean from the public, video participation.
You can always opt to do that, and I think if you're going to have video conferencing, you're supposed to allow the public to participate. And I only had one circumstance where there was an individual who was in Florida, and the address was in the notice, and somebody happened to be there from that school district, and it was at a hotel and was looking for the person.
Ms. Beneo, I think that question was, are you asking for, if there's no policy like this that we're discussing, can the public still do public participation over video? Not any of the board members?
Right, no.
Just, so you don't have to have this
public.
policy. We could still allow the public to do video conferencing without any of this for the board.
That might be.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Lamar, any other questions?
I am, just for the record, I've spoken about it before, I'm all for as much accessibility for the public as possible, so that kind of idea is, I think, fabulous. But if it doesn't have to involve this particular policy, I mean, what would be the difference in, if someone was, trying to get this right, if someone is out of town, or a board member, and can't get here, right, and they want to participate because that particular subject, they know there's a quorum that day, it's not going to be a problem if they don't make it, but they want to participate. Right now, we can or cannot do that.
You have regular video conferencing where where the address is in the notice, and it says any member of the public can attend from either location. It doesn't happen very often.
How would we execute that if we wanted to? And the same thing for having the members of the public, if we don't adopt this, if the members of the public want to, how would we execute that? Do we have everything in place to do that?
I think right now when Mr. McCoy usually talks to the people that want to sign up, he asks them if they want to do a video or not. And usually we've done that in the past, allowing participation that way. So that's really cool. I think the difference, Mr. Lamar, is having the address where you are in the notification of the meeting at the time when we tell them when the meeting is going to be. And let's say you broke your leg and you were at home convalescing, but not that sick that you didn't, but you wanted to participate. I'm not sure you would like 10 people from the public to come to your house. You know what I mean? It might, you might not feel well or whatever, and it might not be very cool. So that's what this particular policy does. It takes away that reason to have your address in the public notice.
Thank you. Just for clarification, so if I'm hearing correctly, once you make the notice that you want video conferences available and you put your address in, anyone from the public who wants to go to that location must be allowed to come into that location. So if it is your personal home, then you are opening your home to the public.
Or you sit outside on your deck.
Okay.
Or your hotel room.
Right.
Okay.
But you wouldn't have it in the hotel room, you would do it in the lobby. You can do it in an airport. This is what the Committee on Open Government has said.
Okay.
As long as you should do it in a place that's public, not a place where you will have one-on-one.
So, Ms., hold on one
The
second.
other piece that was interesting was that the notification of who's in your house during executive session, is that was in this thing too, right? Can you explain that a little bit, Margot?
I think you have to certify that nobody else is attending the executive session. When they first allowed video conferencing, I remember talking to Bob Freeman, the shamed executive director from the past, who said that they were considering telephone conferencing, but there was the specter of the town board and people sitting there and not being able to see who was there. And I think that it makes sense to have somebody certify or guarantee or warranty that there's nobody else there because of the sanctity of executive session.
Thank you.
Mr. McCoy, if you could possibly, for the edification of board members, walk us through that process. If I'm unable to make a meeting, what would I do? Who would I call, and how would that take place?
If you still wanted to participate currently at the next board meeting, you would have to let me know I can't make it. And then I would have to notify the public like I normally do with the notification of meetings. The next meeting, October 23rd, will be at 124 Grand Street. The notice will also state underneath that, the meeting will also be available at 123 Grand Street, yada, yada, whatever the board member wants that address. It will go
Okay.
out in the notification to the media, to all the, the whole distribution list that it currently goes to.
Is there a timeline on that? Can they call you the day of the meeting?
Yes,
They can.
yes.
As long as we put out the
It
notice.
depends when you know that you need to video conference. Sometimes, for example, if you have obligations for your work, and all of a sudden you have to be someplace. This way, you're notifying as soon as you know.
Right, I just wanted to clear that up for anybody that may have that question. Ms. Mineo, your light is on. Do you have a question?
Excuse me, say that again, please, Mr. Howard. Oh, my light was on.
Your light was on. Do you have a question?
I'm thinking whether or not this policy is going to help or not. And for me, the jury is out.
Could.
Very difficult. Any other questions, Mr. Lamar? Okay, thank you. Mr. Forger, 1.03?
Can we have some direction on this policy?
Oh, my mistake. What is the consensus of the board members, Mr. Lamar?
It seems like we can do anything that this involves without moving forward with this policy. So if that's the case, then I would say there's no reason to move forward with it.
Well, the only thing you can't do is not put your address in the notice and not invite the public to attend.
So no matter what, if you choose to, whether we adopt it or not, if you would choose to move forward, or no, if someone chooses to
Attend by video.
attend by video, that part has to take place.
That's been in the law since the beginning.
Got it. Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we put this on the agenda for next month and come back to it? Because I need time to really think about all the ramifications of this.
Okay, we'll do that. Mr. Clerk, just move that forward to next month's meeting for discussion.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Forger, 1.03, please.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Next policy is coming up, non-represented employees. So this policy governs the certain individuals that are within the district that are not covered within bargaining units and are not part of the executive cabinet. So they are not represented by a union, and they are governed by this particular policy. So this is how they get their benefits. This is how they get their salary. This kind of outlines everything. There are currently 18 employees that fall under this particular policy. And what you'll notice is this particular policy is a little bit different than those that are covered in a bargaining unit. So if you consider the NTA contract and you consider the CSEA contract, salary progression in both of those contracts run on a step and a percent increase each year. So in order for me to go from step 2 to step 3, I get my step increase, and then I get my percent increase. So I get a boost for a step, and I get a boost for a percentage. The way this policy was written, it only gives them a percent increase. And I believe in this particular contract, it's a 2% increase on an annual basis for these particular individuals. And I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the CSEA contract is a little bit different, and I believe the NTA contract is a little bit different as well. So these people get a 2% increase, and then that's what they get each year. And what's been happening is these are some very, very dedicated people to the Newburgh School District. These are people that have worked for several years, and they continue to just get the 2%. And what's happening is as they're ending up into years 15 to 23, they are now making less than those individuals that are represented in CSEA doing very different work. So these individuals are your confidential secretaries. They're the executive director for facilities and grounds. They are the board clerk. There are a variety of different positions that are in here. These are critical positions to the district. And when I took a look at the way this falls, we have out of 18 employees, 6 of the 18 are 20 years or more. So they've demonstrated their commitment to the district. They're Newburgh people. They are here for the best interest of the community. And these are individuals that basically got a 2% increase each year without the additional step. My recommendation is to maintain the way that the salary scale runs, but to compensate these individuals for their dedication to the district through a longevity increase. And my longevity increase projection is a for 10 years is 5,000. If they stay 15, it increases from 5,000 to 7,500, so it goes up 2,500. Then it goes from 15 to 20 would be at 10,000, so it's another 2,500. 25 years at 17,500, and then 30 years at $20,000 longevity. When we looked at the salary scales, we looked at going from step 2 to step 3 on a typist. In that 1 year, the step increase was over $1,000. Is that correct, Mr. McCoy?
Yeah, I think it was 16 and change.
So we were using an average of $1,000 for a step. Now, step stops at a certain point, but I really, truly believe, and I'm going to advocate very strongly for these individuals, that they receive the compensation we're requesting. They are available to us morning, noon, and night. They are available to us on the weekends. I can tell you the individual that I work the most closely with, I could call that individual from vacation, and that individual would help me through whatever I needed. And I feel the same way about those individuals that are on this list, that don't have the close relationship with me. I hear that they're equally committed. So my recommendation is one change, and it's regarding longevity for the non-represented.
Board members, any questions? Mr. Lamar.
Just one, I see that the steps go up over five, not step, but the increases happen at 5-year increments, and they're all $2,500 increases, except for between 20 and 25. It's a $7,500 increase. Why did you choose to structure it that way?
Because we think it's critical for those individuals to have an incentive to stay with the district. They are valuable employees. They have history. And if they're still here at that point in time, they have committed, and they have also demonstrated proficiency in order to be here that long. And in my opinion, I think it's really critical that we honor them for their many years of service.
Ms. Mineo?
I support your suggestion, Mr. Forget. I would like us to look at the retirement incentive also, 1997 was the last time that was looked at. And I really think that that deserves a second look. I'm not going to make any recommendations because I'm not that smart on that. But I think that, if they go down to page 2, the retirement incentive says reference resolution 52797. So I think it just needs to be kind of polished up before we put it before the board. But I don't know whether I'm making a recommendation to increase the amount or not, but I think that needs a second look.
So you want that done prior to it being brought to the board for a reading adoption?
Well, we can do the first thing first and then bring it back and look at the retirement thing. Because I think I sense urgency from Mr. Forger just a little bit on this, so, yeah.
Mr. Ford, do you want to speak to that?
I would appreciate time to review the retirement incentive. It's going to take time to calculate that out, and I appreciate your opportunity for us to do that. I do believe that this is something that we've looked at for some time now. We were exploring this last year and trying to figure out ways that we could maintain specific individuals, and I'm hoping that this will do that.
Mr. Lamar, any questions regarding that?
No, I actually think looking at it, after having asked the question about the 25-year mark, seeing that the retirement can kick in at the 25-year mark, it does make sense to give them more value in sticking around, because if they've got the option to walk at 25, I tend to agree with what Mr. Forger is saying.
Okay. Dr. Campbell, would you like to bring in on this?
So I think one of the things that I completely support it 100%, but one of the things that I want to concur with Ed, not only does, if he calls, but if we have a need, they call to ask, how can we help? We were here last weekend, and they were here, Nobody submitted a timesheet. They just showed up. I just decided, since you guys are here, maybe you'll need something. So those are the types of employees we have, and I 100% support that.
Okay, so I'm going to need a little help here, Mr. Clerk. So for reading adoption, will we do the first part and separate the second part, or how will we break this up?
You would read and adopt that as it's recommended on the screen, and then in a future meeting, if you want to look at that other part, you would then look at that other part separately.
Okay, thank you. You okay with that, Mr. Lamar? You okay with that, Mr. Mineo? Okay, thank you. Mr. Clerk, first read and adopt, please, Mr. Forget.
Nope, finish that.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Forget.
So before we close personnel, before we close policy, I need to know that will the committee members support these recommendations on the floor the night of the board meeting?
Madam President. He's asking, will we as a committee support these recommendations when they come on the floor at the upcoming meeting?
I missed 3/4 of that. Say that again.
Sure. Madam President, my request is, now that we've completed the agenda, we've had dialogue, we've listened to considerations, as we bring these forward at the board meeting, do we have your support to bring these motions forward?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Lamar?
Thank you.
Okay, so just for clarification purpose, not in regards to this, but that's a great question. The purpose of committee meetings is to give a consensus, correct? So if we disagree on something, wouldn't we do that here and then give the central liaison the idea that we don't necessarily support something and there may be a problem going forward with that? I'm a little confused. Go ahead, Mr. Lamar.
Well, to me, I mean, these are public. Someone could be watching. So that being said, there's no way to know if someone after this meeting, but before the next full meeting, doesn't reach out to us and bring up a perfectly valid point that gives me a different perspective on any of these. So could my opinion change? Yes, but at this moment in time, I feel confident. That's the way I see it.
Okay. Okay, I understand now a little better. Mr. Forger.
Yeah, and one of the things we're hoping is that as we move forward and grow and develop, that the the committee itself makes the recommendation. It's not me, it's not Jackie, it's not Carol. It's the policy committee spent some time to work together to create a recommended policy for consideration by the full board. So I guess what I'm asking for is, as we unite as the policy committee, can we unify and say, based on the research that we've done, the discussion that we've had, support each other at the board meeting when we bring these resolutions forward? I think that shows unity. I think that shows collaboration. And I really think that we've got to show our community that we're working together and we're doing what's right for kids based on a conversation for a specific purpose at a committee meeting. That's why I asked that question.
No, and I agree with you. Madam President, anything on that? Mr. Lamar, anything on that? Dr. Campbell?
So I think I want to honor what you said, Mr. Lamar. I hear you because this is a public meeting, but I think one of my asks is that if someone does have a different perspective and brings it to a member of the committee, that collectively we have a conversation so that we can strategize together as a committee before we're on the public floor having a disagreement about something we just agreed upon.
I agree with that 100%.
Couldn't agree more.
Ms. Lamar?
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Mineo?
think also that if board members have questions, that if they pose them over the weekend or Monday morning early, at least then the questions are there and can be researched and answered in a knowledgeable and organized way, rather than, oh yeah, we'll get back to you. No. If we ask the questions ahead of time, then at least we can get an answer that's organized and posed really, answers done well.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Ford really couched it perfectly when he said that as resolutions, they come from the committees. And it really is the committees moving forward with a recommendation to the entire board on a resolution. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you, Mr. Forget. No other questions? I'm going to thank everybody for coming out today. Great October meeting. And let's support our Go-Backs on Saturday. Homecoming, Cancer Awareness Week, and let's just root for our guys and girls in all their endeavors this week. Thank you very much. Motion to close?
We're closed.
That'd be good.